Good afternoon, crap to cream. So today I'm just going to do a bit of a talk fest. I've been getting a few inquiries about the supercharger I fitted, so I thought I'd go through and just discuss where I got to, what I did with my supercharger. So the first thing that I was thinking about, right, was I thought, what do I want to fit a supercharger for? Do I want it for a track car? Do I want it just for additional road performance? Or do I just want to do it for something different? For me, it was just to do something different. So I went searching on the internet and I found VMax cart in the UK, and I spoke to a gentleman called Stuart who was very helpful. He taught me through the process of how to fit it and what I needed to get and what did I have and what were the plans, etc, etc. So from there I ordered the supercharger. I got a supercharger kit which came with the inlet manifold, various springs and gaskets and pipes and fittings, decomp plate, and a crankshaft pulley and a new crankshaft seal. So I got all that, and the kit arrived very efficiently, well wrapped, and there was no damage to it at all. I picked a colour which was candy apple red. You can pick various other colours to have the casing, the outer casing, and my car was red, so I just picked red. And then you go into, well, obviously before you buy, you go into the cost, right? What's it going to cost me? So I already had the carburetor. So from what I can see, looking at the VMax website, in Australian dollars, you could get there for about $5,000, right, for a kit. Now, I think that includes the carburetor, and it might be a genuine Weber one. So when Stuart sends the Weber out, obviously it'll be jetted for the supercharger. I had the Weber, which was jetted for a standard 18V engine, and that's where my problem started. I just go with challenges, right? So that's where a challenge started. I fitted the decomp plate, and when I fitted the decomp plate, this lifted the cylinder head marginally on the block, and then when I came to adjust the tappets, I couldn't get the tappets to adjust, so I had to machine off all the rocker shaft posts, the thickness of the decomp plate, so that I can now readjust all the tappets. I also fitted ARP studs, which was something I chose to do because they're a better stud than the standard ones, and they're better for high compression, etc, etc. So I fitted them. They were not the cheapest cylinder head studs I've ever bought. I also got the cylinder head and the block decked because I was doing a rebuild on the engine, so I got them decked so that I knew I was in a good place to start off. So this is all the stuff that you need to do, you need to consider. And then what I did then was I got a set of extractors or headers, whatever you want to call them, and a standard exhaust. So the extractors met up with a standard exhaust. I chose to fit an AFR gauge, which in the end proved invaluable because you're able to watch the fuel mixture as you accelerate on the overrun, and also when you're cruising, so that you can see where your mixture's at, so you're not too lean, too rich, whatever. The AFR gauge was a good one. I got the exhaust ceramic coated. I had 2 coats externally and 1 coat internally to try and reduce the amount of heat within the engine bay. Some people have fitted a cool air intake that goes to the front of the car that I've seen, and the inlet manifold comes with a cooling water jacket. Now at the time I chose not to fit the cooling water jacket. Well, you can run the supercharger without the cooling water jacket. However, later on that became a bit of a problem. So I put all the supercharger on, I set it all up, and the car went fine, right? It went well. Didn't go great, it went well. So my next option now was to go to a dyno. So the dyno's not cheap, and also you have to book in, which for me was like 3 months in advance, because there's something that every garage has a dyno. So I went to the dyno, and the biggest thing that the guy pointed out, right, was the fact that the air intake temperature which he was measuring was too warm, and it wasn't a particularly hot day. So he advised me then to fit the cooling water jacket underneath the in the inlet manifold. So from my way of thinking, there was only a gasket protecting water going into the engine via the supercharger, and this cooling water circuit would have been an independent circuit and not integral to the car's cooling water circuit. So I had to go, because I didn't buy the kit originally, I had to go and get a radiator. I had to go and went and bought a computer radiator, and that came with a load of fittings, and then I had to go and buy a water pump. And it was at that point, right, that I decided that I'd gone far enough for me, right? I wasn't going to put another radiator in. The car was going fine, it was not a problem. As part of what I did, I fitted a catch can, because the inlet manifold pressure on the supercharger side, on the inlet side, is at pressure now because it's supercharged, and there's only one connection on the inlet, which is going to the brake booster. So I was a bit restricted there. I could have put a Y piece in, I suppose, and I could have put the crankcase breather back in, but I just decided to fit the catch can because that seemed to be an option that other people had taken. So I fitted the catch can. The other thing, right, the other major thing was the timing. So originally I had an Ignition 123 distributor, and it was set up for an 18V engine, and the timing and how that works in relationship to the engine speed is where the fun begins, I suppose. So the original Ignition 123 distributor, that one just had a fixed setting, and I connected the vacuum back to the carburetor and to the distributor. So I was doing both an electronic advance and a vacuum advance, and never the twain shall meet, apparently. So I was advised to disconnect the vacuum on the distributor. So I did that. It improved slightly. I wouldn't say it was out of this world. So then I took the plunge and bought a programmable Ignition 123 distributor, and that wasn't cheap, but that did make a significant difference. So I can now set up the timing. I was able to get some curves from Stuart about what was the best curve with a supercharger on, and that made a significant difference. Additionally, I could stop on the side of the road, reprogram the distributor by a couple of degrees, and then go for another run, which is all in my videos in the past. And you could work that out. And then it came to once I'd done that and I'd got the performance a bit better, then now I'm off to the dyno again. And it was that like, I think it was $300 for a couple of hours on the dyno, and you just don't know how long you're going to be because there's an hourly rate. And then it was another 3 months to wait to get onto the dyno because they're busy making money from people who just want a Commodore to go fast, to do burnouts and things like that. And some guy with an MGB who's fitted a supercharger and wants to know how the jets, or what's the right jets and everything else for the Weber, takes a lot longer and is a bit more refined. Let's go with that. And there's not many people in Perth, Western Australia, who do carburetors. A lot of it now is all electronic. So to find someone to be able to do the Weber and set that up was a bit of a find. So anyway, I've now found a dyno. I'd been there once. I'd found out that the horsepower was more or less equal, if not just a tad more than was original, but there was a lot more there to go. I had to decrease the inlet air temperature, which seemed to be the biggest thing. So there's a gentleman called Craig who runs Exhausted, and he put some slats in the top of the bonnet. He also did a cool air inlet setup, and he was using his car as a track car. So I was not. I'm retired. I'm retired. I was not going to do track work. So I decided then to go and purchase this Range Rover behind me, and I tried to sell the MG with the supercharger on it, and nobody really wanted to pay the price. And I couldn't put my hand on my heart and say it's running perfectly. It's, you know, it's a magnificent change to the car, because, you know, it wasn't sparkling like I was expecting. But that's my fault. It's got nothing to do with the supercharger. It's the setup, and it's how much time and effort you want to put into the setup. Put a different camshaft in. You want to do other wonderful things and go to the dyno. If you have a friend with a dyno, great, you know, and he can work out how to do Webers, great, go and see him. He's your, you know, he's your person. I enjoyed the exercise of fitting the supercharger. It was a very good conversation starter when you went to shows, and when you were, you know, doing like the Bonnet Open barbecue, the Bob barbecue, things like that. It really got the conversation going. And it's different. Nobody else had one in the MG club, right? In our MG club, nobody else had one, so it was something a bit different. Boost gauge. So yeah, I fitted a boost gauge, and I found that the boost gauge only it only started boosting when you put your foot into it, right? And you're accelerating up a hill, or, you know, when you're cruising, right? There's virtually no boost there at all. It's evident on the gauge. Also insurance. So when you put a supercharger, you need to be mindful of telling your insurance company you fitted a supercharger. In the event something does go wrong and they find a supercharger on the car, I don't think your insurance will be too happy if you haven't told them. And then also in Western Australia, if you put something on like this, it's a modification, therefore it requires to go over the pits and have a permit. So you have to watch your power to weight ratios and all that wonderful stuff. Not that it was making a sparkling difference, but when people, you know, you might need an engineer's certificate for this when you put it on over the pits. In the UK, it doesn't seem to be so stringent as it is here in Australia, so you might get away with that. But you just need to be mindful of telling people what, you know, the right people, what you're doing, so that in the event that anything does go wrong, you got your backside covered. Anyway, I'll just get all the camera now and show you what I've got. So this is the supercharger. This is my Weber 45 DCOE. This is the belt, and the one that fitted for me was a 5-peak 1165. Something else you've got to watch is this is not spring loaded. So when you put a new belt on, you've got to retension the belt. I didn't, and the belt came off, and it involves some smoking paint here. But anyway, that's it. The oil in here is good for, I think it's 50,000 miles, I think. I think that's what it is. This is where the cooling water jacket fits. So there's one here and there's one on the other side. And if this leaks, or this leaks here, then you have to take this off the inlet manifold to fix this, because you can't turn this obviously with it in place. This is the vacuum for the boost, and yeah, there's there you can see the linkage set up for the carburetor. So it goes into a pin here, and yeah, so there. And then this is another for, I think these are for measuring independence, because these are pressure. So the boost gauge, so there's the other connection for the cooling system for the circuit, radiator in and out. Yeah, and then this here is the boost connection to the AFR, to the boost gauge. The AFR gauge is fitted into the exhaust in the exhaust. So here's the engine that had the supercharger fitted. So you can see the ARP studs there. This is the programmable distributor from 123 Ignition, which you can see there. I can't show you the tappets because I haven't taken the cover off. That's the pulley. So that's the crankshaft pulley, the extra one that comes with it. There's nothing really on this side. I cut that off so that we went into the catch can a bit easier. That's about it. So when I fitted the AFR gauge, it went into the where the two pipes join there. Alright, but it's on the header, and I haven't got a set of headers here to show you, unfortunately. So yeah, so that's the engine, and you can see the decomp plate there in the between the cylinder head and the block. So the cylinder head, yeah, so you've got the cylinder head, and then you've got two gaskets and the decomp plate. So it all lifts it all up a bit. So there we go. That's my thing on a supercharger. I enjoyed fitting it. Yeah, it's a good exercise, and I believe that I've now gone on or waffled on for long enough. So if you like what I've done and you want to see what the process that I went through, there's videos all about fitting the supercharger and everything else. So thank you very much indeed for your time and your support. It's very much appreciated, and I think I can sign off now. I don't think there's anything else that I need to mention. Yeah, have fun, right? And yeah, people, the purists will say don't fit one because it goes perfectly well as it is. Well, I've fitted the 455 DCOE now onto my other MG, and that, in my opinion, like the way it's set up right now, has more sparkle in it than it did with the supercharger on. But again, this is not, it's about how it's set up, and I didn't set it up right. I had it running nice, and it could, you know, it went, and it was economical-ish. All right, enough waffle. I think I was, so thank you very much indeed for subscribing. Thank you very much indeed for everything, all the comments, and if people want to start a bit of a discussion on this video, for people who look at this video in the future, then please, you know, just make comments, and I'll try and reply to them all with the answers that I've got, or refer you to someone who will have the answers for you. Well, thank you very much indeed, and a happy new year to you all. Yeah, happy new year, and yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.